The next morning, Cecile stood outside our door and said, "It's 9 o'clock. Why y'all still here?" Vonetta pointed to me. "It's her fault." Fern joined in. "All her fault. She won't take us to the center." "Yeah, she said we can't go no more." Cecile turned to me. "Delphine, what did you do?" I spoke as plainly as I could. There was no use in speaking small-mouthed. I told Sister Makumbu we're not going to the Free Huey rally 2 Saturdays from now or coming back to the center. "Why'd you tell her that?" "It's dangerous," I said. "The police shot a teenager for being with the Black Panthers. They could shoot Black Panthers and kids at the center." Cecile looked at me like I was stupid, but also with disbelief that I was her daughter. "Did anyone shoot at you, Delphine?" Her voice was calm and clear, not crazy. I felt stupid. "No." "Did they point a gun at you?" "No." "Did anyone put a gun in your hand?" "No." Cecile said, "Y'all get dressed and go. They might still be serving breakfast." I couldn't believe she'd make us go back to a place where we could get shot. But then I returned to my good common sense. Of course Cecile wouldn't care if we got shot up by the police. I told Cecile, "We'll go for breakfast. We'll go for summer school. We won't be going to no rally. That's just a pot of boiling trouble cooking. Y'all two, get in there and brush your teeth. Wash your faces." Cecile crooked her head toward the bathroom. As soon as Vonetta and Fern got up and left the room, she stepped in closer to me. I was genuinely afraid. "You watch how you talk to me, you hear?" I nodded in reply, and I was no nodder. She wouldn't accept my nod. "No," she said. "You got a mouth, so I want to hear you." I said, "Yes, ma'am." That old-fashioned word just crawled right out. Cecile grunted. "That's the problem right there. Here's Mammy. You sound just like her, like a country mule." I think that set Cecile off more than my saying we weren't going to the rally. Me sounding like Big Ma. Cecile went back to her kitchen, fussing up a full steam like she was talking to someone. Me. That she couldn't have us here messing up her peace of mind and that she couldn't work with us in her house. Cecile carried on a full conversation, on and on as we walked out the door. Crazy. Vonetta and Fern were only too glad to be headed toward the center. They couldn't stop rubbing it in. "See, Delphine, you can't tell us what to do," Vonetta said. "Surely can't." "'Cause we're going to the center and we're going to the rally." "Surely are." "And we're going to sing our song." "And do our dance." "And you can't be in it with us." But Fern didn't go along with Vonetta on the last one. Not that I wanted to be in it. Still, a small part of me was glad. Fern had always been mine. I wasn't in a hurry to go inside when we got to the center, but I followed my sisters when they pushed the doors open. Vonetta and Fern couldn't eat the late breakfast and rejoin Sister Makumbu's class fast enough. I found myself dragging behind them, feeling badly for myself. No one ever called a take-back eating crispy fried chicken. They called it eating crow, and with good reason. Not that I'd actually eaten a black crow, but with my words stuck in my throat and my eyes cast down, I knew what eating crow was. I knew that having to eat crow when you were once proud and right was like swallowing a hunk of tough, chewy crow meat that wasn't about to go down easy. Sister Makumbu didn't make me feel like the nothing I knew I was. Her bangles jangled about her wrists as she welcomed us back into class. Everyone was practicing their parts in a play for the rally, and she said we had arrived just in time. They could use more actors for the class's reenactment of Harriet Tubman leading slaves to freedom. Vonetta was mad because Janice was to be Harriet Tubman. I knew I'd hear about Vonetta missing out on being the star of the play for the next 7 days. Later, after Sister Pat led us through calisthenics in the yard, Eunice came over and sat with me. "Thought y'all weren't coming back." "We weren't." "Then why you here?" Eunice had a lot of nerve and a lot of mouth asking me why my sisters and I were back at the center. I had nothing to say to Eunice. I already felt bad. I shrugged, although I was no shrugger. "You were just showing off, telling Sister Makumbu how you and your sisters weren't coming to the rally, like you're in charge." "For your information, I am in charge of my sisters." "Oh yeah? So why you back then?" The last thing I would do was tell Eunice Ankton that we were here because Cecile shooed us away to write her poems. "'Cause," I said. I couldn't figure out why Eunice sat there with me. It was bad enough to feel stupid. I didn't need anyone sitting with me reminding me of it. My sisters were having a good time. Fern and the youngest Ankton girl, Beatrice, taught each other hand-clapping songs. Janice and Vonetta chased after Hirohito and his friends, but they were only after Hirohito. He'd zig left and right, escaping the girls each time they came within tagging distance. Finally, Janice managed to tag him and run. Vonetta was upset that she hadn't tagged him first, but that didn't stop her from cackling and squealing along with Janice. Janice and Vonetta were one and the same fool. Eunice beat me to making a sound of disgust. I said, "I wouldn't hardly be chasing after no Hirohito Woods." "Me neither," she agreed. I hated telling her I was only going into the 6th grade when she was going into the 8th grade. At least I was an inch taller than she was. Hirohito, she said, was going into the 7th grade. I told Eunice her dress was nice. Then she showed me the inside stitching. Once I saw the crisscross of her mother's neat hand stitching, I decided I liked Eunice Ankton. She wasn't the big girl who thought her clothes were better than mine, or the girl who sided with Hirohito Woods and made me feel ignorant for not knowing he was half-colored and half-Japanese. We were two older sisters watching our younger sisters playing games and running around making fools of themselves. We were both the oldest girls in our families, and we knew the same things. Itsy Bitsy Spider. Vonetta couldn't stop practicing her poem. Well, it wasn't hers. She got it from a book of Negro poets at the center. If she couldn't sing her song, she would recite a poem all by herself. It wasn't enough for Vonetta to say her poem, which was actually Gwendolyn Brooks's poem titled "We Real Cool." Vonetta tried to be her poem. Since there was no applause from Fern and me the first time around, she started up again, as zombie-like as she could, to imitate the toughs standing around outside the pool hall. If Big Ma heard Vonetta and saw her standing like a shiftless bum on the corner, we'd be on the next plane back to New York City. Vonetta was into a groove and couldn't be stopped. She started up again, saying, "We real cool, we left school," as loud as she could, in case Cecile hadn't heard her. I would have done both Vonetta and Cecile a favor by giving her a swift kick, but I didn't care if Cecile yelled at her. I didn't care if Vonetta disturbed Cecile's peace of mind. So I let Vonetta recite on and on. "We real cool, we left school." Vonetta was a perfectionist, but only about certain things. Things that would get her noticed or earn her applause. Big Ma said Vonetta wouldn't be such a show-off if Cecile had picked Vonetta up more when she was a baby, hollering in her crib. I didn't need a flash of memory to recall Vonetta's crying. She cried loudly and a lot. Our door was open and Cecile was in the living room, lying on her beat-up sofa. Cecile could hear Vonetta perfectly well. Vonetta had said this poem 7 times so far. I was certain her aim was to say it 10 times each night, but Cecile didn't let her get that far. It took only 6 angry foot stomps for Cecile to make it back to our room. "Cut that crap out! That's not even a poem. I could have knocked that out of my sleep. You think Gwen Brooks was some sort of genius?" Then she stomped away, this time into the kitchen. I heard her hands smack the swinging door hard. Back in the 4th grade, my teacher would have us lay our heads on our desks after we came in from recess. She would recite poetry to calm us down and get us ready to learn more science or history. Robert Frost, Emily Dickinson, Countee Cullen, and William Blake, all fine poets whom we should know, she'd say. Well, I knew a real-life poet. I didn't know how fine Cecile's poetry was, but I'd seen her writing poems in the kitchen and sometimes on the walls or on cereal boxes. Who else in my classroom could claim they knew a poet and that she was their mother? So on the afternoon that Robert Frost's horse had clip-clopped through the snow, I'd raised my hand and told the class my mother was a poet. Now, Delphine," Mrs. Peterson said. "Nice girls don't tell their classmates lies." She'd kept me after school and told me she knew the truth about how my mother had left home and that wanting a mother was no excuse for dreaming one up. I couldn't leave the classroom until I'd written, "I will not tell lies in class," 25 times on the blackboard. And then I'd had to erase the board clean. Vonetta sulked something pitiful when Cecile told her to cut it out. Vonetta only heard that her recitation stunk. She wasn't thinking about how Gwendolyn Brooks was a great Negro poet and that Cecile, also called Nzilla, was printing her own poems in her kitchen. Last year, Vonetta practiced her curtsy more than she practiced her wings and time steps for the Tip-Top Tap recital. She fell on her fanny in the middle of her solo and was miserable for days. Usually, I'd pick up Vonetta's broken spirits until she was once again crowy and showy, but now I let her sulk after she received no praise from Cecile. Serves you right, I thought. Just to be evil, I rubbed it in with an insult. I don't know why your lip is hanging, I said. You're just like her. We both knew which her I meant. I said that to make her feel mad on top of being hurt. Just like I know how to lift my sisters up, I also know how to needle them just right. Am not. R2. We did a few rounds of that, then a final not and 2. Okay, Vonetta. Suppose you were going to be on TV. She perked up on that one. Playing Tinkerbell on Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. But it was PTA night, or school talent night. And your little girl, Ludi Bell, Fern added in. Ludi Bell, I picked up, glad to have Fern's support, had a part in the Itsy Bitsy Spider. In her Itsy Bitsy Spider costume. And she'd been practicing her Itsy Bitsy Spider song and dance for days. Weeks. A whole 2 months. The Itsy Bitsy Spider went up the water spout. I knew I could count on Fern to climb high with her tiny, sweet voice. Vonetta sat there defiant, unmoved, proving my point. It was like looking dead at Cecile. A shiny white Cadillac comes to carry you off to be Tinkerbell on TV, but your precious little girl, Ludi Bell, is standing at the door in her costume, waiting for you to take her to school talent night. What would you do? That's easy, Vonetta said. I get in the shiny white Cadillac with my matching vanity bag and luggage. And what about your little girl in her costume? I asked. Yeah, what about Ludi Bell in her costume, wanting to dance for her mama? Each and every one of us knew the feeling of having no mother clapping for us in the audience. Only Big Ma and sometimes Papa when he came home from work in time. Crowy and showy Vonetta said, First of all, I wouldn't dare name her anything as silly as Ludi Bell. And my little girl would be happy I was a Disneyland movie star. She would tell her jealous friends at school, There goes my mother on TV. I bet your mother just fries pork chops and wrings wet clothes. My mother is on TV flying around in blue fairy dust, waving a magical wand in a cute sparkly outfit. The magic of Disneyland had won Fern over to Vonetta's side. It was all of that blue fairy dust and magical wand stuff. Fern's eyes twinkled as she imagined having a colored fairy mother. I was looking to get Vonetta's goat, but I only ended up losing Fern, and Vonetta was her old self. And that's why you're like Cecile. You want to be a fairy on TV more than you care how your kids will feel and if they miss you. Do not, and do too, went on between us until Cecile stomped back to the room and said, Cut that crap out!